Right in the foothills of Orem, Utah, there's an office where two childhood friends are working every single day to disrupt the billion-dollar solar sales industry. A few years ago, Matt Smith and Trevor Hiltbrant realized that the cost of solar on your residential roof varies by tens of thousands of dollars, depending almost 100% on how much the sales rep is putting directly into their pocket. So Matt and Trevor decided to change that. They have completely turned the solar industry on its head by selling and delivering solar directly on their website, removing the sales rep from the process. Today, we're talking to Matt about how they grew Project Solar from a small startup to now a nationwide disruptor with over 3,000 installs. We talk raising capital, selling and installing their very first DIY system, their biggest challenges, biggest partnerships, and their vision of making solar accessible for every single homeowner. All that and more on this episode of UtahPreneur. Matt, how's it going, man?
Going great. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Great to
been a while.
be here. I can't believe the scale of the operation. I lived with Matt while he was, I don't even know if you can call starting the company, like ideating the company. And you have come a long way. For those of you who can't see, there's probably like 50 computers in here. How many staff do you have at this location?
At this location, we're probably, around like 40, but 55 in total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Total employees.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the breakdown of like how many in each part of the company?
Yeah, we have, a marketing department. We have a finance department. We have an onboarding department, a customer service department, and then executives. And probably the heaviest is like onboarding and customer service. And as part of that too, we also have like a pipeline management team and a DIY team. So they're kind of like sprinkled throughout those, but the onboarding department's probably the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah, out of all of them.
So let's go back to day one. How did you get the idea for Project Solar?
So Trevor Hiltbrant, who is my business partner, we grew up together, and we're both just very entrepreneurially minded. So we would constantly talk about business ideas, and I actually knew that I wanted to teach high school and thought, if I want to teach, I need to teach now before I need more money for a family and stuff. And so while I was teaching, Trev was doing business, and Trev probably did, 10 or 15 different e-commerce businesses, was on Shark Tank and all that kind of stuff. And then we invested in a company called Route together. And when we invested, we just started going to lunch more regularly because I got hired by Route, so I could kind of give Trev the scoop on what was going on. And then we went through a couple different, we were thinking about starting a credit card for families to kind of do what Divvy does, but, in the personal world, which I've seen other companies now do, which I think is super awesome. And then, Trev had a door knocker knock on his door and basically give him a price of like $50,000 for a system. And then another door knocker come and say, hey, well, I can do it for $35,000. And he was like, you can just cut 15 grand off of the system. And because of that, he realized how much these door knockers were making. And so I'm a pretty hard person to convince, but Trevor is, he's not like a big talker. Like when Trev says things, I'm like, okay, there's some weight behind that. And so he was like, Matt, if you'll leave Route and start this business with me, we can sell it for $100 million in 1 year. And I kind of laughed, and, he was joking, but there was some seriousness there. And I was like, all right, that's, I laughed and left, but I started to really think about it. And then, in 2020, we jumped and decided to start Project Solar together. So Trev's really like the brain behind it.
Okay.
And I asked Trev, I'm like, so why did you want me to do business with you? You could have picked a lot of other people to do this. And Trev was like, well, I knew that you'd be the one that would get up on the roof and actually do things rather than just talk ideas. So we got up on his roof and then installed the first DIY system of Project Solar, and there's no leaks to this day. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And the idea, I remember talking about this with you at the time, and you were like, we're going to start an e-commerce solar company.
Yep.
And then I was gone for 6 months out of the country. I came back. We were at your house again, and you were like, we got an add to cart for $80. I think we're sitting on a money printer. And there's been a lot that's happened since then, right?
Yeah.
Which I want to dive into. But give us the idea, from the idea of I have this idea to deliver solar panels to somebody's roof, cut out the door knockers, and bring down the price. How much pre-work did you have to do to get to the point where that could actually be feasible?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's two ways in my mind, and maybe there's others if there's like a business expert in the room, but basically it's like, are you going to bootstrap this thing or are you going to raise capital? And when Trev, had reached out to me, he had only bootstrapped his businesses. And I said, Trev, if I'm going to do business with you, like I just, got a master class on how to raise money by being the first employee at Route, watching them raise hundreds of millions of dollars, scale up super fast to maybe like a $500 million valuation, whatever it was. And so I was like, I want to raise. And so when we had started, we first said, well, why don't we raise 500 grand just like from our network? And then with that 500 grand, basically create a website and then, get ads going, create a few ads and see what the CPA, the cost per acquisition, would be of a checkout, so to speak. We charge $100 for someone to be able to check out and then talk to us, basically. And so that was maybe what went into like the idea, and all of our friends and family and the people that invested could have just lost their 500 grand, and we could have said, dang, the CPA is way too high. And obviously we would have pivoted and like tried to make it work if we needed to. But anyway, it worked really well, and we realized, and actually I say it worked really well. There was like a moment of freak out where Trev called me and he was like, dude, like we spent $1,200. There've been no checkouts. Like I thought it was going to be around $500 for a checkout. And so we dove into what the whole process was. And there's this tool called Loom. Have you heard of a Loom before? That records your screen.
Yeah.
And we had used it as teachers to be able to give students feedback on their writing. And then Trev had seen it for like people advertising to him. And so we decided to use Looms to like, Keaton Walker's interested in solar. I can see, your house and everything that you have put in, and then create a specific Loom where you can see my head and I'm going through all the numbers for you. And the first one that I sent, like 3 hours later, the guy checked out. So I called Trev and we were freaking out like, oh my gosh, this is money. Like this is totally going to work. And that was really like, yeah, a big deal for us. And then, we started using tons of Looms to drive down our CPA.
So you had already generated the leads. It's just that you couldn't get anybody to check out without that extra little push.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
And that's entrepreneurship to me, where it's just like, all right, figure it out. Like you don't know what's going to work. And that is like in our blood. You'll see throughout our 4 or 5 year journey. But
yeah. Did you have like installers and product and stuff that you knew you could ship to that person's house when you were sending those Loom videos and started the ads?
Good question. Yeah, there's a company called CED Green Tech, and they can ship product anywhere throughout the nation. The issue for us was finding installers. And so we literally, we start scaling ads at that point. We're sending out Looms, and we have someone check out in Texas, then Illinois and New Jersey. And it was just kind of like, okay, now we got to find these installers. And we don't come from the solar industry. And so this was kind of to our detriment, where I start trying to recruit these installers because we're showing someone a total price. But the problem is we haven't found installers who are committing to install at that price. Oh, okay. So it's like, okay, we have to find someone who can honor that price. And so kind of that chicken and the egg scenario where they're like, well, we need some volume to be able to honor those prices. It took a lot of like salesmanship to get that up and going and like paint the vision of what Project Solar could be. And then eventually the tables turned where installers started to apply to work with us. And now we've had like 450 installers apply to work with us because they're saying Project Solar is the future. And so, we would love to have their committed volume basically. And so, yeah, that table turned eventually. But yeah, at the beginning, it was literally just like getting on Google, looking at reviews, trying to like, make sure someone's a good installer and then passing a job off.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many of installs have you done to date?
Good question. We've done a little over 3,000 right now.
Yeah. And you started kind of going nationwide, but you scaled that back to certain states, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So eventually we actually got into install and basically said, we're going to be permitted, licensed so that we can pull our own permits, do the net metering agreements in-house, all of that. And we scaled up to actually like 120 employees, but our processing time for projects to like from the time the contract was signed until they actually received permission to operate was taking around 10 months, which is horrible. And so we just, basically had to make a very, very difficult decision to lay off that side of the business and say, we're going to put these projects in somebody else's hands who are really good at it. And so now we work with a company called Freedom Forever. They're an EPC, which stands for Engineering, Procurement, and Construction, and basically means, hey, if you hand us the contract, we'll take care of the rest. And so now we are more focused on sales, and they're our install arm, and they're in like 35 or 36 states.
Wow.
Right now. Yeah.
Who was your first hire? My
brother.
Okay. And what did he do?
He was a designer for us. Okay. Yeah, his name is Dudley. Okay. Is what we call him.
Does he still work here today?
No, he doesn't anymore.
Okay.
Yeah,
was he like the designer for the website? Who was the first like full-time, hey, you're working for Project Solar, and what was their job?
Good question. Yeah, so he was the first full-time you're working for Project Solar, and he and I say we call him Dudley. His name is Spencer, and his middle name is Dudley. Anyway, but the job was to design people's homes. So when you would check out, he would go into this tool called Aurora, and he would design the home, and then I would go in and send the loom. And it's like a little bit technical. It's kind of like a CAD program, if you will. Mm-hmm. So he would be designing in that way. But yeah, he was our first hire. And
how soon after your first add to cart was Dudley brought on?
Probably like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Trev is really good at executing. And he kind of like sees, okay, if we want to be at, call it like point Z, he's like, okay, then this is B, C, D, E, F, and goes through. And so Trev can see like, hey, this is clearly where we're going. We're going to need someone who's here. And so, let's execute and like use money to do those things. So yeah, we hired him pretty quickly after.
Nice. Yeah. How long were you sending the loom videos for?
A long time. And I had like a big beard at the time. It's funny to go back and watch those. But yeah, I just like love people. And so it was really fun just like thinking about each person as I was going through. And I'm like, Greg, this is going to be amazing. I'm like coming up, and now it's like, then eventually it was more scripted, and we have a manager who's auditing and stuff. But I had a lot of fun with it.
And when did you eventually hire somebody to take over those?
Oh, man, you're asking these hard questions. Maybe it was like 4 months in or something like that. Yeah.
So you probably sent, I don't know, 200, 300?
Yeah, like more than that. Lots of looms. Yeah. It's the OG loomer.
Yeah, that's right. They just got acquired, I think. Or had some big valuation or something.
Yeah. It's like one of the best businesses ever.
I love that. I love that tool. It just makes it so easy.
Yeah.
What would you say to people that say about solar, you get what you pay for, as a reason not to use Project Solar?
I mean, it's pretty simple. I just feel like, you can pay $60,000 if you want, but ultimately, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going through a sales rep, you're paying that person's commission. Mm-hmm. And I've literally talked to sales reps who are like, if I'm not making 10 grand on the job, I'm not interested. Wow. Multiple times. And we're selling for $2.50 a watt, right? And if you have a 10 kilowatt system, that's 10,000 watts. So it's 25 grand, just easy math there. I know sales reps who are like, oh, I can sell it for $6 a watt. So literally we sell it for 25 grand, and here's a sales rep who can sell it for 60, and they're bragging about it and they think it's so cool. And I'm like, I understand that, but like, just stop for a second and think about that. Like, that is slowing down our progression as a nation to become green, right? And then it's also just straight up taking money. It's greed. But again, I understand it. It's like, you're young. It's like, oh no, it's a win. Like they're still cutting their costs down. Like they were paying 100 and now they're paying 95 or whatever. Like, so I understand, but we're just like, have you heard the quote from Jeff Bezos? Your margin is my opportunity.
Yeah.
We're just like, all right, if you have that fat margin, then there's a fat opportunity and we're going to take advantage of it. And for us, ever since we've started, basically all of the big players have looked and, either called us or contacted us or whatever and said like, hey, we're reverse engineering what you're doing and we're going to compete with you guys. And we're like, go for it.
Good luck.
And it's hard. Yeah, it's really hard. It's a lot of people think, well, you can just throw up a website and you'll be selling solar in one day. And it's like, yeah, like if it was that easy, it would have been done before us. But there's a lot that goes into it. So
Yeah. What are some of those challenges you guys have run into? I assume it's mostly on the install side because the sale is pretty much a no-brainer. Like I just got quoted 55K and you guys are offering to me for 25 or 30. That's the no-brainer. But there's always something in the back of the consumer's mind that's like, am I getting taken advantage of here? Like what's the catch?
Yeah.
To what I assume there was some rocky installs or things at the beginning that were tough to work out. How was that? What happened and how did you work through it?
Yeah. So we had some installers who went out of business. So, in the past 18 months, call it, the solar industry has been through probably its hardest time since the inception of the industry. The installers who went out of business, if someone was sold through like a door knocker or something like that, that's it. Like you gave them a 10 grand deposit and now you lost your money. But with Project Solar, obviously with our brand and who we are, we were saying, no, like we have to stand up for our customers. So we had a particular installer who went out of business that took about 250 grand of our customers' deposits. And that was a hard lesson to learn. But yeah, we went and paid back those customers, even though the installer had taken the money on that. And then a lot of customers, their install was halfway done or whatever, and the batteries weren't installed, but the solar was or whatever. And we had Grant Hiltbrant, that's Trev's brother. He has been a phenomenal employee for us. He went through each of those jobs and just made sure that all of them were done. Obviously, customers were still frustrated because that took a really long time, but we just realized that it's very expensive to do right by the customer. So we better be very careful with like who we're working with, which has now led us to working with Freedom Forever, who's a national installer that's doing, 5,000 or 6,000 installs a month. They have probably over $1 billion of revenue running through them. They're not going to go anywhere. Yeah. And so, a lot of battle scars from those experiences.
And what does that look like for the customer? Like they're like, I got my deposit down and the solar just never showed up, or they got the panels, but nobody installed them, or... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good question. It's funny even hearing you kind of think through that, because I remember when we were starting this company, we were like, okay, like we've had, 200 people check out. This is great. We're just going to install 200 people. It's going to take us, like 30 to 60 days. And you pull a permit with the city, you slap the panels on the roof. There is so much that goes into each solar project because every home is different. And it really starts at, right? I mean, someone pays a $100 deposit and now, okay, do you want to sign a contract with us, right? And so we have to nail down exactly what that system is going to look like. Once the customer agrees, then we would go to the engineering phase, which is where we look at the electrical and structural to be able to say, okay, is this even going to work? Is your roof going to work? All those different stuff. And then a site surveyor goes out there every single time to take photos and, make sure that the project will work. And then once those plans are made, they're submitted to the city. And then it's back and forth with revisions. If there are revisions, a lot of times it's a new AHJ, we call it authority having jurisdiction. So it's a new AHJ who is saying like, no, this is how we do things in this AHJ. This might have worked over here, but not over here. And for us, because we're nationwide, it's like every single customer is a different AHJ. And every single time it's like, nope, okay, yep, revisions. And it's taking like so much time to get through. And so basically it's not necessarily just the panels not showing up. It's just like, how quickly can we get approvals? And not only the city, but also the utility have to give us approvals, and learning all of those and getting to a point like where Sunrun, they literally have relationships with the people who are approving so that they can like move a lot faster. Yeah. For us, we don't even know the requirements yet. People are like, who's this new kid in town? Like Idaho, for example, is very difficult to work with until you know what they're asking for. So like in the state of Idaho, I remember one customer who took like a year for us to get through because it was just like, nope. And they don't tell you, hey, you did it wrong. Here's what you correct. They're just like, you did it wrong. You're like, okay, like what are we supposed to? So just all of these growing pains of entrepreneurship where you're trying to learn, is it worth it to go into this market? Like, I only have 24 hours in a day. Like, where should we put our energy? Should we pull out? Should we be in there? Like, all of these things were, decisions we've had to make and are still making, quite frankly, today.
And would you say having to refund $250,000 worth of deposits to customers was the darkest moment so far? Or was there an even darker one?
Probably the decision to lay off our build partner team. Was probably the hardest. I love people and I loved the people that we worked with. A lot of them felt like we almost like stab them in the back or whatever. Like, how could you, like, we were moving this direction, and like, how could you, now lay us off? And it was just like, yeah, like, this is super hard. This is what's best for the company. And if we were to keep this, like, we've been losing a ton of money. So eventually none of us would have jobs, and trying to explain that, it's really difficult. Yeah.
And talk to us about that personally. Like, are you having like sleepless nights thinking about all the people that don't have jobs now, or what really affected you there?
Yeah. We hired really good employees. A lot of them are, they're very employable. And so we also, of course, when that happens, we tell them, hey, we'll help you get jobs and things. And I'm sure that they've landed in good places. So I'm not like, oh, like, these people aren't going to get jobs because they're such good employees. But no, it's just like, you love them. Like, you want to keep working with them. There's a guy named Aaron Gray who was like running those ops. And that was really hard because I loved working with Aaron, and we want to win for our employees. Like, we want our stock price to be super high. We want to make sure that we're dominating so that these people who are taking a bet on us, they're winning. Yeah. And so it's really hard to kind of say like, hey, like, it didn't work out. It just hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about raising money. I feel like it's scary in the opposite way, where you're like, hey, like, your last raise was what, 20 million?
Yeah.
When you're getting that much in, are you scared of letting those people down? And does it kind of bring the game to a different level, or how does it feel?
Yeah, I think differently maybe than a lot of people. I don't know. I just like don't. Maybe it's my competitive nature or whatever it is, but there's always this moment that comes back to me to explain what I'm talking about here. It's when I was riding a motorcycle. So Trev and I are part of this friend group that rides these like 1,000-mile rides every year, or 800-mile, whatever it is. And anyway, on one of those rides, we're coming up, we're probably going like 60 miles an hour on a dirt road or whatever. And we're coming up on this trailer, and I like start to slow down, but because it was so quick, everything that was happening, basically I had to pass this trailer going like 40 miles an hour. And the gap between the trailer and this wall and like a big ditch was like the size of my tire, right?
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I could slam on the brakes here and like try to be safe, or maybe even try to ride into the ditch. It's like, you have all these options. But the way that I think, and I think about this a lot, I just like lasered in, and I'm like, I just have to make this. Like, this is what's going to happen. Like, I'm going to be totally fine, and I'm going to ride that line exactly like I should. And that's similar. And I did, and I rode through or whatever, which is not a big deal. But it's similar with like taking money. I'm not like, shoot, like, we're not gonna be able to get a return or anything like that. And I know that those things could happen, but I guess like my mind is just really focused on like, man, I'm like stoked to be able to give you guys a good return and to kind of like ride that line. That's just like where my focus is.
If you could go back, would you do anything differently? Hindsight's 2020, maybe not start the build team, but something that's actionable for people listening. What would you have done differently in the first maybe? You've been in business 4 years, so the first 4 years.
Yeah, there's tons. Good question. I probably would have consulted more with people in the industry. And it's hard because we definitely tried to change the industry, and I don't think change will necessarily come from within. Like, everybody, for example, who's outside of the industry will tell us to raise our prices. You're selling too low. And we have a completely different mindset around that. But yeah, especially on the install side, I just think if we would have consulted people in the industry and understood more about how the industry operates, namely that, sellers are passing to these EPCs, they have a red line, and those EPCs are taking care of those for you. If we would have done that, we probably would have then focused more on the sales side. And in the months where, so we probably turned off ads like 4 different times because we couldn't handle our growth in terms of being able to fulfill. But if we had an EPC like Freedom Forever at that time, we probably could have scaled to like 1,000 to 2,000 installs a month. But yeah, us taking on I know you said like besides that, but that really was just a massive mistake, which I think came from not like really understanding the industry.
This is a first world problem.
Yeah.
And you get to solve stuff you're excited about every day.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me about what are your margins? How did you come up with what to charge? We talked a little bit about, the sales bros upping the prices just because they can.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about that, and what are you currently operating at margin-wise?
Yeah. So maybe I can't speak exactly to that, but basically I'll say we have a fixed margin, and based on the size of the system, the price per watt will fluctuate. So obviously a smaller system, a higher price per watt, a bigger system would be a lower price per watt. And that's just so that we stay competitive across the board. And so, yeah, we've kind of come up with a number that makes sense, and then said, okay, as the system scales, we'll keep that number. And it's actually not a percentage; it's a dollar amount that we stick to. Yeah, to try to make sure we're competitive, like when we're competing for bigger deals, basically. Wow. Yeah.
And just in listening to it, seems like a big part of this was trying to save people from overpaying for solar.
Yeah, it's huge.
Why does that matter so much to you?
Like I was talking about earlier, probably 3 or 4 experiences. So one would be, I have talked to customers, I've talked to friends who, as we were starting the company, they had just installed solar, and some of them was like, "Oh, I just installed solar, and I did it for $450 a watt," and I was like, "Oh, like $450 a watt? Like you literally just paid 20 grand into someone's pocket. You could have been $250 a watt if you'd have just Google searched our website, checked out what's the equipment. Oh, it's sub to our equipment. Like, oh my gosh, like sorry." And kind of like seeing that regret and stuff, I'm just like, man, like I wish I could shout from the rooftops, like, don't go solar with anybody else unless it's, honestly, not even saying unless it's Project Solar, but like someone who's offering these fair prices with good equipment. Because we offer the best of the best equipment for our prices as well. So having those experiences of like just watching people not recognize that they're way overpaying, just pains my soul a little bit. I eventually want to go into politics and feel like there's a lot in our country that needs to change. And so this is just like one of the things, particularly right now, and in conjunction with kind of some of the plays that we're doing right now for the company with the AI boom, there's just like a massive need for more energy. Mm-hmm. And so I would be surprised if the government repealed what's called the IRA, which is the government helping more people, like subsidizing solar basically, because we need more energy. And so, the fact that people are now being presented with solar, the numbers don't work because they're being offered a super high price, and then they don't go solar, is also very frustrating from like, hey, what's best for our country and our economy here? So yes, it's people getting ripped off, and then also just, us being able to produce enough energy in the nation and doing it in a green way. All of those things kind of combined are what keeps us pushing forward.
That's some Elon Musk level vision there.
Yeah,
like,
we hope Elon
humanity.
helps us in this new government here, because we're like, solar's important. Come on.
Okay, so you had a lot of offers to just buy Project Solar outright near the beginning, right? Like, was it less than a year that you've been in business?
Yeah, Todd Peterson, basically, it was 2 months after we had started the company. Greg Butterfield, who's the ex-CEO of Vivint Solar, reached out and said, hey, we're starting this company. It's now called Lumio, but at the time, just Nuco or whatever. And they basically said, hey, we think that the future of solar is going to be, instead of like sitting down at the table, it's going to be more of a stand-up sale or even an e-commerce sale. Let's, see if there's an acquisition opportunity here. And so, yeah, we have an LOI from them dated like March 31st of 2021, which seems like it's like so long ago now. But they had given us a good offer. And then on Easter, Todd Peterson called and basically said, hey, don't sign anything with Greg. Like, we're going to fly you down to Cabo and we're going to give you a better offer, all this different stuff. And so, yeah, we went down and kind of entertained an offer from Vivint for a little bit. They invited us to play golf, which neither Trev and I golf. And we were like, dang, how do we get out of this? Like, we're going to look like fools on the golf course. And then they're like, oh, we don't want to buy this company anymore. But anyway, so we kind of went through those and then ended up turning both down. And then in our Series A, Vivint came back and, gave us another offer. And then a company called Palmetto, who was really well capitalized, flew out and said, hey, don't sign with Vivint. Like, we can give you a better offer. And so I think all of that just taught us, we were like, whoa, like this is really important to the industry, something that we felt like was relatively easy to prop up and like start getting sales and stuff. Obviously, in their minds is what the future of solar is. And we still believe that. Granted, we still haven't been like a smashing success and we're, competing with Sunrun on volume and all this kind of stuff. But we do think like as the industry starts to normalize again, that we'll be able to kind of like make those leaps and bounds. And basically our vision is that every homeowner quotes with Project Solar. And so we just want to be a household brand so that nobody's getting ripped off, because you can literally just go to our website. You can see, oh, this is what I should be paying for solar. And either they're going to go with Project Solar because we have a great offer, or at least they're not going to get ripped off by, someone who's selling for twice as much.
Very cool. Just to maybe some pat on the back for you, I was reading Reddit reviews of Project Solar on the way over here.
Uh-oh.
And almost everyone was like, hey, I got 4 quotes and Project Solar was in every single one of them. And so I think you're on your way there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
You said at Route you got a master class in raising money.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the acquisition offers came because of the different rounds that you've done. Can you talk us through what you did after that first $500K and maybe the top 1 or 2 tips you have for someone raising capital, especially in Utah?
Yeah. So I think from Route, we just learned the importance of painting a vision and having like a really clear vision. And it should just be an honest, like good vision. And it's like, if you're an entrepreneur right now and you're thinking about starting a company, like practice on your friends, practice on your mom, like whoever it is. And if you're like losing their attention, or if there's like a moment of the pitch where you dread because you're like, this is the boring part, but I got to get through it. It's like, that's not good. Like you want to make sure that like every piece of your pitch and the vision that you're painting is like something that is tangible and just something that is like honestly authentic and real. I also don't think you have to be like an extrovert who's really good at speaking and all those types of things. Like Trev's more introverted, I'm more extroverted, and that's totally fine. I think as long as it's like real to you, that the right investors will see that and invest in your company. So first like having a good vision, but then also being able to kind of like what I was talking about, Trev's strength, like paint the picture of how you're going to achieve that vision and accomplish that. That is something that maybe combines Trevor and I, where I can more like speak to the vision and read people in the room, whatever that is. And then Trev can answer all these specific questions when people are, asking about your margins and how you're going to overcome this and this and this. So that worked like for us as a team. And then another thing that I learned from Route was just FOMO. As stupid as that is, it's very real. And kind of the way that Route raised. So we actually, I think I had said this, but we invested in Route and I watched them do this with us, where they were kind of, like, hey, like we have a lot of investors who are interested, which was legit. Like they did. And that made us like almost like anxious to put money in, which, we're grateful that we did. But that use of FOMO helped them to raise, and then also helped us to raise, where it's like, don't just get one party in the room, like do the work to get 2, 3, 4 parties in the room, several different term sheets so that you can, do what's best for your business.
And what were those different raises you did in order?
Yeah. So the $500,000, which is funny, this kind of just shows who Trev is. Like, you're supposed to have that at a certain valuation. And he was like, I don't know. This is just an idea. Like, how are you supposed to value a valuation? And Trev's about creating real value, which I've learned a ton from him. But so he was like, well, let's just say like 2 million. And we were talking to Scott Paul. He's like this angel investor that is in Utah. He was like, he fell out of his chair. 2 million. He's like, you could have said 10 million and I would have given you my money. And Trev was kind of like, well, whatever. It's 2 million. And like, so they are, friends and family. Scott was one of them. They put in $500,000 at a $2 million valuation to kind of like kick us off. And then we used what's called convertible notes to raise a couple of just like bridges to get us to our Series A. And so the Fraser Group was super helpful in that. Absolutely love those guys. But they and a couple others basically gave us like $3 million on a 30 to 50 convertible note, which that basically just means based on some future event within a time period, we'll set the value of when that 3 million converts to equity. So it could be, on the low side, 30, on the high side, 50. And then our Series A, we raised, 20 million at like an 85 million valuation or something like that. So it's like a pre-money valuation of 85 and then a post-money valuation of 105. And then after that, actually acquired a company called Colossus, which we did at 185 million. All of these numbers are kind of smoke and mirrors a little bit. It's like, it's what someone's willing to pay. And we do realize it's like, okay, what is the true value here? And so we are working really hard to make sure that there is value to back that up and to go beyond those things. But that was kind of like our experience and history with raising money.
So what's next for you guys?
Oh, there are so many things next here, Keaton. Have you read The 4 Disciplines of Execution?
I haven't.
Okay, I know you're a reader, so you got to pick that up and read it. It's a really good book. We are reading it right now together as an executive team, and the first thing that it talks about within these 4 disciplines is focus. And so we are trying really hard to be focused, but it's really hard to be focused. So right now we're actually working with Amazon to do some really fun things that I think can like really change the industry and accomplish our vision. I love Amazon. That's one of the books that we read together as an ELT. It's called Working Backwards, which if anyone is starting a company and you are particularly looking at hiring people, I would read Working Backwards. It's like, okay, that's going to take me 4 hours or whatever. That 4 hours you spend reading Working Backwards will pay for itself 1,000 times over. We wish we would have read that at the beginning of Project Solar. But anyway, so working with Amazon, they're amazing. And we're trying to just get creative and get better so that Project Solar can get out there more. I'll just maybe leave it at that. Okay. And then, we see an opportunity for a tech play as well that we're starting to dive into right now. There's a lot of pieces that are available to us that we need to put together. And it's in the renewable energy credit space. That's part of the reason that we're working with Amazon. And there's a lot to say there, but I probably can't speak too much to that. And then we're also working on our unit economics and basically becoming a financer right now. So I said stay focused and then gave you 3 very different, but we feel like they're all important and we're willing to work hard to get them done. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Last question for you. What does it feel like to have the big office, have all the employees? Has it done anything to your identity? And was the jump from, 2 childhood friends with a couple employees to now 55 employees, raising money, etc. Did you have to do any internal work to be ready for that? Or did you feel like you were just ready for it?
So I feel like it hasn't done very much to me. I think my identity for myself, I see myself as a son of God. I see myself as, a husband, a father. Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting because my wife has watched this up close and she's like, babe, this is huge and all these things. But maybe it's because I just feel like, we're not done. Like we have so much to do still. And so there's really no sense of arrival, no feeling of like, gosh, this is awesome. And, maybe like a mother would say like, slow down and pat yourself on the back. But I just feel like there's still so much to do. If that answers part of your question.
No, that was great. What were some moments that gave you the confidence to keep going, like a big win that you had or a big partnership you landed? And what did it feel like as you were going through that?
Great question. Honestly, working with Amazon has been awesome. So I remember at Route where there was this partnership that was being formed and I was over partnerships for a little bit. And the decision maker came in and emailed us and said, absolutely not. And I was kind of like, crud, like this is not gonna, and then my buddy Kyle Rooney and I kind of, made this email that we sent back. And then the guy apologized and said, hey, actually we are interested, and And it was this moment where I realized, like, whoa, like we just got this absolutely, he didn't just say no. It was like, get lost. Like, and then we turned it around to a yes. It was really cool. We've had a lot of those here. And like even working with Amazon, when we started the relationship, we, it was rocky and kind of like, dang, like they're not going to be interested in stuff. And just seeing, so we flew down to this conference particularly to meet with them, and it was kind of this surprise, like, we're here and we want to try to make something happen. And when they recognized that, they started off the meeting with like, well, this is going to be short, but like, we're still not really interested or ready, so to speak. And it was cool because Trev jumped in, which, my strength is like, making these relationships. And then when it gets really into the details, I'm usually like tapping Trev on the shoulder, like, give him all the details, like, give him what you got. And so Trev like started spitting out all this like really valuable information, and they grabbed onto it. And since then, like we just met with their head of sustainability. We're meeting with, people on different teams throughout the whole org. And that relationship has been really exciting. We've also pitched like the executives at Costco, and they've been very excited about Project Solar. And so, yeah, forming relationships have been really fun. Yeah, Amazon has definitely been probably the most exciting as of late.
Cool. What I'm getting from the whole, just everything you've said about Trevor, the raising money process, et cetera, is that having the plan is just as important as having the vision.
Absolutely.
When you're pitching partners or anybody. Very cool. Well, I think that's it. Thanks so much for coming on. If anybody wants to buy solar and have it delivered directly to their house, you can DIY it, or you can hire an installer. ProjectSolar.com.
Yeah, thanks, Keaton. Appreciate
it. Man. This is great. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of UtahPreneur. Real quick before you click off, I just have 3 quick things, and I promise they'll be quick. Number 1, follow UtahPreneur wherever you want to on social media. We also have every episode available on YouTube with video if you'd like to watch that. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way you can support the podcast is by sharing it with a friend or leaving a review, or both. And number 3, if you liked this episode, you should definitely check out last week's episode where I sat down with my friend Spencer Meekum and talked about building a one-person business to $100,000 a month with just a video editor and a virtual assistant. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.